Welcome to High Growth with HTDC. I'm your host, Cindy Matsuki. HTDC is the state's tech economic development supporter. So we support everything entrepreneurship, innovation, tech, and manufacturing. And those are the things that we like to showcase here on the show. First off, we're gonna do some announcements before we meet our awesome guests. So Wetware Wednesday this month is next week Wednesday. Wetware Wednesday is our monthly networking event for software developers and engineers, and this month's event is sponsored by the Energy Accelerator. They just opened up their applications for the accelerator, so if you are interested, check out their website and apply. They're going to be talking about the Energy Accelerator and what it can do for your startup, including up to $1 million in funding for growth stage companies. They offer mentorship and helping you build strategic relationships. Their graduating cohort will be at this Wetware Wednesday also, so you can hear firsthand about the accelerator experience. Following closely on the heels of Wetware Wednesday is Startup Paradise Demo Day on June 13th. This demo day will highlight 13 startups from both the Energy Accelerator and Blue Startups. They're expecting a crowd of about 300, including investors, entrepreneurs, policymakers, students, and other stakeholders. And a big bonus for attending Demo Day is their keynote speaker, Dave McClure, venture capitalist and founding partner of 500 Startups, a seed fund and incubator program in Mountain View, California. He's invested in and worked with a list of amazing companies, so he's not to be missed. Check out Startup Paradise. It's on Friday, June 13th, and it's going to be at Iolani School. Also, do you need any legal advice regarding your business? HTDC is offering free legal guidance in partnership with the Business Law Corps. You can sign up for a 30-minute appointment at the Manoa Innovation Center during June and July. Please visit htdc.org/legal to sign up for a free half-an-hour legal advice appointment. Lastly, I would like to call out all SBIR Phase 1 winners. HTDC offers the state's matching grant for up to 50% of your Phase 1 award. So if you've won a Phase 1 award recently, please contact us at sbir@htdc.org. Speaking of SBIR powerhouses, we have in the house today Ian Kitajima of Oceanit and Ravi Pare. Is that how you say your last name?
Ravi Pare.
Pare.
Yeah.
Sorry, Pare. So, and Oceanit is also a driving force of design thinking in Hawaii. And so I wanted to find out more about how that's going. And for full disclosure, I used to work at Oceanit. Just so it's out there. So briefly, I wanted to ask, what is Oceanit?
Oh, so Oceanit is probably one of the larger private science engineering companies in Hawaii. About 150 people across most of the islands, with offices in Washington, D.C., Houston, Texas, San Francisco. And we just work on really, really hard problems, as you know. So customers come to us with their most difficult problems. And we have a real diversity of engineers and scientists and business people, and we work on solving problems that really haven't been solved before. But one of the major things that has been very important for us, being so technical, is how do you add the human element to that process of innovation? And so that's why we got involved with design thinking many years ago.
Great. So what is design thinking?
So I'll let Ravi talk about design thinking. So Ravi is actually the newest member, to one of the newest people to have joined Oceanit. And he's a little bit different because Ravi is actually a mechanical engineer, but he really comes from the design school at Stanford. And so his expertise is in the human-centered kind of design process, which is really an important step for Oceanit, but is really we're trying to kind of change the mindset and the culture of the organization. And so Ravi was a big investment for us. It's that important to us. So Ravi's that important. What he's doing is super important. So actually Ravi and I sit next to each other. And so I've been getting a Stanford education for the last few months. So it's been really good. So I'll let Ravi explain what design thinking is.
Every time Ian ends up introducing me like this, and everyone who knows Ian well, they always know how modest and humble he is, and it's
He's the man. Ravi's the man.
I think for me, when I chose to join Oceanit, it was a big decision for me, but I was also fascinated by the kinds of work that we do at Oceanit. And even today, when I encounter new people, I get to learn about something new, fascinating thing that they're working on. I mean, it's been like 10 months since I've been here, and I still get to hear something new, which is like
every day
blows my mind away. And I think on the technological front, we are doing a lot of different important and new things. One other thing, I mean, perhaps not as much part of the entire stuff is how we can connect different disciplines to a much higher degree to bring together new things, new innovations. And as we are doing that, we are also concentrating on how to look at it from a user point of view and develop technology and morph it as we develop it, right from the beginning stages, and test those technologies as we go forward. And essentially, design thinking provides a very good tool set to do all of these things. First things, to collaborate across disciplines, to bring everyone onto the same page, and reduce the risk of innovation as you look at developing new ideas, developing new technologies. If you follow the process, it helps you reduce the risk throughout, and also to come up with solutions which have never been thought of before. So, well, that's design thinking in a little.
How does it help you reduce the risk of innovating?
Often when we think about innovation, it is always said that innovation is the single biggest possible element in the modern economy. If you don't innovate, you perish. It needs to be done. There is no two way about it. You need to invest in innovation. But one of the hardest things about innovation is you cannot. It's like, oh, I'm having a shower today morning and have this wonderful idea and it works out. That doesn't happen to everyone. It doesn't happen every day, right? How do you make that happen? I mean, how do you make it as a part of the culture of thinking process in a company, right? And there are always risks involved with that one. The way to reduce it is bringing people from different perspectives together with core expertise in their own fields, but also making them work together on a single problem. But it doesn't help if I develop up to a stage and the person who is in a different expertise develops it to a stage, and then we combine together what we have. It doesn't gel well. It may not be solving the right problem. It may not be an effective solution as well. But instead, if you put together this group of people at a single table and ask them to work together, you are building step by step, right? That is like one fundamental element of it, that you co-create stuff. You don't just talk about what you're doing and get advice and work on the stuff on your own, but you are actually working on, hands-on as you are building stuff. But the other important thing is you're not just working in isolation. You are in constant touch with your users. You are developing something, you are putting it out there to see how they react, to see what they need, whether it actually satisfies those needs. So the more number of times you do that, the lower the risk is, right? I mean, if I were to develop the entire product and throw it out there, I need to spend so much money on marketing and convincing that this is what they need. But instead, if my approach is different, I already know it is going to sell. I have more confidence as I go further. It seems very, very obvious way to go forward for me.
Very
So
good.
that's the way it reduces the risk.
It's trying to break habits, right? There's a habit of, especially as you know, in R&D and applied research, there's a very disciplined process that framework actually is almost imposed by the customer and the programs that you're dealing with. If it's SBIRs or other things, things get programmed in for 6 months, a year, 2 years. And I think one of the mindsets we're trying to build towards is failing quickly, and which really translates into how we learn quicker, how do we learn faster, and how do we do it with less risk in time and resources and money. Sometimes we feel like we have to build this thing first, then we show the customer, and then we talk to the customer, versus let's build this simple, really low-res thing first that's maybe really junky and doesn't look so great, but get the customer involved sooner than later to see what we learn from that in order to get eventually to that higher kind of finished product. But it's almost like breaking a habit that we have of like, it has to be perfect now, or before we show it to a customer, or before we incorporate customer feedback into it. And that's the hardest part, is like everybody wants to not look bad, but design thinking, the mindset and the process actually encourages you and supports it. And so now I can really understand that idea of like, failure is a good thing. I never really understood that saying, because in my mind, I'm like, how can failure be good? How is looking bad a good thing? But it really is kind of changing the culture and the mindset of the organization by fostering and kind of playing around with design
Especially
thinking.
failing early and cheaply.
It's totally the entrepreneurial model.
Yeah.
And Ravi's really been a very good, it's kind of like I tell people, it's something like playing tennis, but we're all beginners. So we all think we're really good, and then all of a sudden Ravi comes along and it's like, boom, and you're like, whoa, what was that? Right? And all of a sudden you go to another level. So that's kind of what also the
awesome.
upcoming bootcamp is about too.
That's great. So I wanted to ask, I guess if you could give me an example of a project that Oceanit has put through this process, and at the same time that'll kind of explain how Oceanit is building this into the culture in the company.
You want to talk about the marine boots and stuff?
Okay.
So
correct me if I miss out anything.
Yeah.
So I believe this was a SBIR project where they came up with the problem of marines having a problem with drying their clothes. Often they are in this elements which is
like
not under
wet.
their control, and they usually carry everything that they need out to the fields. I mean, including the pair of clothes that they would want to wear the next day, or the shoes. Everything is self-contained, and they're like heavily armed, and essentially a wet cloth is probably the last thing they would want to have when they are doing their duties. And it's also hard because they are just camping out in the wild, and you need to dry your shoes, have dry set of clothes to wear the next day. So they were looking at faster drying solutions for their boots. Essentially, having a comfortable and dry clothing to wear every day,
The next day.
when they are in a long-term assignment. So we started looking at, okay, what are the needs out there? What is that is required? And we even got shoes and tried them ourselves.
And you brought
we actually got the shoes, but this is the shoe which is typically used by the Marines.
Wow.
So if you see that it's heavy, I mean, when it gets wet, it's even more
It stays
heavier,
wet.
and it takes a while to dry it.
right, the technology is great at keeping water out, but once you get water in, that
It
technology
stays in.
keeps the
Make
water.
sure that the water is inside.
So it takes something like 12 days for this boot to dry,
my
just
God.
air dry. So we got it
Yeah.
fully wet. It would take 12 days for it to dry by
Wow.
itself. But so imagine walking around for 12 days, or even just a day with wet feet.
Yeah.
How bad it is.
Ugh.
But you don't have like a dryer. You don't have blow dryers. You can't sometimes build a fire. You don't have energy to dry these boots. So
this is something that you guys came up with? Is this your prototype?
yeah, so this is actually one of the earlier prototypes of the system. And actually what was interesting is I literally was walking down the hallway and they were kind of testing it out. And
The Marines?
no, we were just in the office
Oh.
and they were just asking, hey, can you take a look at this technology? And so they gave me this cloth, right? They gave the cloth and said, what do you think you do with this thing? I'm like, so I started playing around and doing something and and ultimately used it not in the way they intended to. So, so part of it is they could see, based on how they designed this, how they actually
people are gonna do
designed
with it.
how people will use it in a way. So part of it right then and there, it's like, it totally did not use it the way they intended. Which is exactly what, if you give it to somebody, so I said, your design does not work right off. And I'm not even a Marine, but just, imagine a 19-year-old looking at this thing, how would you use it, right? So eventually from that feedback, and later on with the Marines, gave them feedback in terms of like how to actually, the application of it. The technology is amazing. So because when you put this into the boot, right, I think in 6 hours, the boot's like 90% dry.
Wow, that's
So
amazing.
it wicks up all the moisture into the cloth. And the fabric is actually woven in the basement at Oceanit. So we actually weave this material. It's like
Wow.
it's like Goldilocks,
Yeah.
kind of weaving this material.
Spinning gold.
Spinning, this magic material.
And it's a completely new process as well. I mean, it's used extensively in a different industry, but it's electrospinning.
Wow. And you're using it to build fabric.
Making fabric, yeah.
Making fabric,
That is
which can
exciting.
absorb a lot of water. moisture and retain it. And
Very cool.
so a
But
lot
this-
of prototypes were developed for this one, even to test it out,
Yeah.
and they mapped out the numbers to see how long does it take for it to be 90% dry.
Wow. Very cool. Very cool. We're going to take a quick break. So my guests today are Kitajima and Ravi Pare. And this is High Growth with HTDC, and I'm your host, Cindy Matsuki, on the ThinkTech Hawaii streaming series. And we'll be right back.
I'm Hong Jiang, host for Asia in Review on Tuesdays.
And I'm David Day, host for Asian Review on Thursdays. Both of us broadcast our respective shows at 4 p.m.
And my topics tend to deal with questions related to environment, culture, history, and sometimes human rights.
And my shows tend to be on international business, foreign policy, geopolitics, and national security. And you can watch our shows live on the ThinkTech website at thinktechhawaii.com.
And you can also watch us on YouTube or Olalo.
So come join us on Thursdays at 4 p.m. I'm David Day.
And on Tuesdays at 4 p.m., I'm Hong Jiang.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Hi, welcome back. This is High Growth with HTDC. I'm your host, Cindy Matsuki. My guests today are Kitajima and Ravi Pare of Oceanit. And we are talking about design thinking and how they use it at Oceanit to innovate. And also, there is an upcoming design thinking boot camp that Oceanit is one of the main founders of the event. I think this is the fourth year it's going on. So tell me a little bit about the boot camp.
Yeah, so Cindy, so this is the fourth annual Design Thinking Hawaii Bootcamp. It's going to be from June 17th, 18th, and 19th, so it's actually a 3-day bootcamp. This year is a little bit different than the first 3 years were really kind of a basic boot camp to teach people, kind of do a pretty good dive into design thinking for 3 days. It really has been focused on educators, and so that's how we originally focused on education, but actually it's really kind of gone beyond education. So now there's for-profit companies, government, nonprofits that are part of it for the last 3 years. And what we've noticed is that lots of people have been using design thinking. It's been really spreading. It's been really great. I mean, I think Stanford is really amazed, the folks there, about like what's going on in Hawaii. How come design thinking is so taken off over there? Maybe because we don't have anything else. I don't know, but it's really going. But now we have to kind of take it to the next level. It's kind of like we're all kind of playing at this beginner level. And so people are saying, what do we do to go to the next level? So actually having spent time with Ravi these past few months as well, it really became clear, like, okay, we need to kind of do an intermediate level boot camp. So this fourth annual camp is really focused on people who have some experience with design thinking, have been using it, have been hitting the wall sometimes, kind of trying to figure out, like, how do we really implement this in our organization or whatever we're trying to do? How do we come up with design challenges? How do we implement? How do we engage with people within our organization? So people this time will actually come as teams. So you'll come as teams and you'll stay together as a team. You'll bring your own design challenge, which you may change in the course of the bootcamp. You also bring end users. So people who are actually your customers or your end users are also invited to attend. And it's 3 days of kind of taking it to the next level. What's also a little bit different is that it's going to be facilitated by a Hawaii team. So this year Stanford is not going to be here, but in a sense Stanford is here because Ravi is here, and we're actually we have a really great intern coming in from the D School as well, who will be supporting us. So it'll be a really very fun, take it to the next level. For all those folks who've been kind of like, oh, how do we do more? How do we
Who've
take
been
it?
trying to use it. And
How do we really apply this at another level? So this is the bootcamp that they want to come to. So we have quite an array of folks. Again, private companies like Hawaiian Tel, all the way to Department of Health, to Department of Education, of course, but actually Department of Education is actually sending a leadership team. So a very high-level leadership team is going to be attending. We're going to focus on social entrepreneurship. There's a team focused on social entrepreneurship. So a real wide range of folks, but again, kind of doing it.
Yeah, we are really excited about this because one of the other things that we want to address during this bootcamp is like provide a lot of toolkits, kind of accessories so that they can
kind of takeaways.
overcome some of the of the usual problems faced by teams when they try to implement design thinking in their organizations. And I think since so many organizations are going to have teams in there who will be working together, they will also get to hear and experience what other organizations went through as they implemented design thinking. So we're excited about this.
Yeah.
So kind of like
Looking
sharing
forward to it.
best practices.
Exactly.
Yeah, so part of it too, because we have really the best design thinkers in Hawaii at the bootcamp. So part of it is we're giving opportunities during the week for those folks to kind of share their insights. The things that,
That's
the
great.
challenges they faced, they hit the wall, or, and this is how we overcame it, or how they're actually implementing it and sharing it within their own organization. So there's actually lots of companies now that are been very successful at kind of
Yeah.
Trying to-
teaching it and getting it out to their organizational people. So,
that'd be
so that should
exciting.
be should be really good to hear from the experts in the room as well. So we have a lot of folks like that.
Oh, good. And we also have some pictures to kind of show like the previous year's boot camp.
Oh yeah. So there's
So
definitely.
maybe we can show.
So this is images from the 2013 boot camp. Again, the boot camp this year will be the 17th through the 19th, and it's going to be again at the Koala Ballrooms. I think if you go to our Facebook page, Design Thinking Hawaii, or you go to designthinkinghawaii.wordpress.com, there's information there as well.
Is there still space available?
There's still space available, but we're going to cut it off because last year we had 350 people.
Wow.
That was way probably 200 people too much. So we're going to keep it around 150 of really the most serious practitioners, design thinkers in Hawaii.
They're like super fun.
So that we can kind of really focus together as a community of or practitioners. As you know, Cindy's actually was one of our main organizers when she was at Oceanit, so she knows very clearly the amount of work that goes into it and really the excitement it is for 3 days. It's pretty.
So this is going to give organizations 3 days to focus on one issue.
On their challenge, yeah. Versus normally the boot camp, you come as teams, but then we break you up and mix you up into different teams, and then we actually have a design challenge for the entire boot camp in order to teach the basics of design thinking. But this time, because these are practitioners already, we wanted to give them an opportunity to focus on their challenge with their teams, with their customers, but then take them to a whole nother level. And so a lot of things that I think take, just even on the prototyping side, right? So I know Ravi can talk about what we're thinking about on the prototyping and things.
For example, with the initial levels of, like, for example, the introductory design thinking workshop that we often do, we just make one prototype, speak to one user. How do you take it back into an organization when you are working on prototypes? So there are a lot of different rules of thumb that you could use. Like, for example, you want to make many number of prototypes. You could be focusing on just one part of a solution and prototype that one. And how do you pick those? What do you want to prototype first? I'm building a car, imagine, for example. How do you actually prototype it? So you would look at only the critical part of it and then work on it. And with critical part, what do I mean is that if that particular part doesn't work, it doesn't matter if everything works fabulously, the entire solution doesn't work. So you want to test that first. Essentially, you are reducing the risk, right? And you want to try that prototype in the lowest possible way, not like a fancy way, but what is that you want to learn out of testing that prototype. So consciously going through that steps with the right kind of mindset is the key. So these are the kinds of things that we would be teaching in the bootcamp.
Wow, that is super exciting, especially for companies that are trying to change their culture and get more innovation in there and have been trying to do design thinking too.
Yeah.
And I know there's a bunch of them.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's really hard. Imagine Oceanit. We're super on the other extreme of innovation, but at the same time,
Building the human center.
the human center side is really hard.
Yeah, I would say
good.
it's hard, but it's also easy. So, it's like once you get it, it's only about mindset. You don't even have to think about the process anymore because you dynamically play. It becomes very, very easy.
Yeah.
Very good.
Please
Very
join
good.
us. Yeah, it should be a lot of fun.
That definitely sounds good. So Design Thinking Hawaii Bootcamp, June 17th through the 19th.
Yes.
It's going to be at Ko'olau Ballrooms. Sign up. Check out Design Thinking Hawaii
on Facebook,
Facebook.
and designthinkinghawaii.wordpress.com for
Okay,
more information. Yeah.
great. And I wanted to thank you guys so much for being
No, thank you.
here.
Thank you.
I'm excited about bootcamp. Very good.
Hope you can join us.
I hope so too. And thank you for joining us and supporting the entrepreneurial community. And this has been High Growth with HTDC. I'm your host, Cindy Matsuki. My guests today have been Ian Kitajima and Ravi Pare on ThinkTech Hawaii, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.